Shalom, shalom, kalalal, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. All praises, glory, and honor due unto Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, GMS, that do rule well and that do teach well, and that have taught me this truth. To you I say shalom, and shalom unto the hopeful elect. Lord willing, this will be edifying and thought-provoking in the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. Alright, man, so, hey, love is hard. Hey, love is hard to give out, especially if you're not being loved back. And also, hey, the brothers are lambs and sheep. I don't know what I'm going to title it. It may be one of those two titles, but yeah, man, hey, brothers are sheep and lambs at the end of the day, and that's how you got to view brothers. And if you understand the characteristics and the makeup, the genetic and biological makeup of a sheep, it's sheeps can easily be bruised, man. They can be easily bruised, especially when compared to other livestock, right? Due to their thin skin and poor muscle structure, they can be easily bruised, especially when they're transported or when they're being brought to the slaughter, right? So they can be bruised. Also, they can also bruise themselves if they're put in stressful situations, right? So that's how you got to view brothers, man. Brothers are lambs, they're sheep. They can be bruised really, really easily, and that's how the Lord made them. But sheep and lambs are extremely resilient. They're very strong in the spirit. They're very determined, and they can persevere, man. And that's serious, man. For an animal that's in that lot, they are extremely powerful. Very powerful. And that's brothers, man. Brothers are extremely resilient in the spirit, and that's a beautiful thing, in terms of worshiping Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, right? Doing what has to be done in the spirit. Brothers are strong, man. And that's just how the Lord set it up. We're not set up right now to be apex predators like lions. That's for later. And Yahushai brought that up. That's why it says here, Matthew chapter 10 verse 16, Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Beautiful. Okay? So we're in the midst of wolves, man. A wolf is an apex predator. So we're not wolves. We're not lions. We're not bears right now. That's for later. Right? We're going to be turned into hunters later. Right? Right now we're sheep. So you have to understand that the brothers around you, they're like sheep. And that starts from the first in the command all the way down to the youngest brother in the camp or the lowest brother in the camp, whatever that means, but we use rank and file for order. Who knows? The lowest brother might be the strongest brother. Who knows, man? But that's how you got to look at everybody in the brotherhood, right? And if you're not in a brotherhood, that's how you got to look at your people. Your people are just lambs and sheep, and you gotta deal with them a certain way. You can't be very rough when handling them, man. That's physically and even via word of mouth. You got to watch what you say. Right? I learned that, man. I learned that. Right? So you got to watch what you say, man, because, by your words, that could put a lamb in a very stressful situation. And that can cause them to make rash decisions, stupid decisions. But that's a good thing, man, because at the end of the day, whatever decision they make, being in the position that they're in, it's still going to lead to judgment, whether it be on the right hand or the left hand. It's still the Lord's judgment. So you got to be careful on how you deal with the lambs and the sheep, because you can stress them out to the point where they get angry. Myself, I've been in that situation, right? And it's not like, hey, brother, hey, whoever's listening, brother, sister, or somebody that is just straggling along, man, you gotta really be careful. You may not be trying to take somebody down by your words, but you gotta just watch what you say, man, because the tongue is a little member, but it's a very powerful member. It has a lot of force behind it. And that could stress people out just by you talking. Just by you talking and saying things, man. You got to be careful. But I made the point here in Matthew 10 and 16, that's how the Lord viewed us. We're sheep and lambs. And he knows it. He knows that because he's a lamb himself. Right? So he's a lamb. He's the top lamb. The top unblemished lamb. So a lamb knows what he's talking about. That's why he's saying things like this, because he knows his people are lambs too, because he's a lamb. So he knows what he's talking about. Now I'll say this, man. Love is very hard. If you can understand love while being in this truth, it will go. You will go very far. I think you'll go very far. You'll go very far. You do very well if you can understand love. If you can understand how to give love, even when you're not receiving love. Love may be not distributed to you. You'll go very far. And a good example of that is Yahushua. Yahushua, man, he was given love to his people. But at the same time, a lot of his people weren't loving him back. But he still kept it professional. He still showed love. And that's why he's in the position that he's in, as that shepherd. You notice something, man. When you go on the job and you look at the manager, you know why the manager is in that position? Because he has to deal with the people. He has to put up with the bullshit. And that's why he gets paid more than the average worker. Right? Because he understands love. To a certain degree, he understands love. I'm just using that as an example, even though it's in the world. But he's the manager for a reason, because he understands the people. Right? Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain cases where you just have bad managers. They don't love the people at all. But they don't last too long. Right? They don't last too long. But just watch your managers. That's why they're in the position that they're in, because they have to deal with people. And when you come into this thing, you have to deal with the people. You have to deal with your own people. You have to deal with the brothers, man. And you should ask the Lord to give you more strength when loving the people, man, and dealing with them. Because we see it in Scripture. Yahushua had to deal with the people. Now, what is love? Okay, it's different from liking somebody. Love and like are two different things. And love in the Bible is different from love in the world. Right? It's not some good feeling you feel in your tummy or something that you think of. Really love is done through action, right? But there's certain actions that you have to take to show love, right? So this is John 14 and 15. It says, if you love me, keep my commandments. There you go. That's love. Love is keeping the commandments, man. That's love. Love is keeping the commandments through judging individuals by the law. And where do you find the commandments? In the book. And sometimes you got to go by the book. Right? So if you're not being judged, or if you're not being loved by the commandments, or if a brother's not showing you love that way through the scriptures and through the commandments, through the way that the Lord wants you to show love, then hey, that individual doesn't really have love for you. That's a good indicator. You can tell. Right? So that's real love, keeping the commandments. Now let me get another one. This is Matthew chapter 22, verse 34. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Yahushua said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy power with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So, yeah, man, you got to love the Lord with all thine heart, and you got to love your brother. Okay, yeah, so the first greatest commandment and the second greatest commandment go together. and pretty much they're one and the same. So if you claim to love the Lord by keeping the commandments, then you got to do that to your brother. That's how you got to show him love. That's how you got to show love to the people. And that's exactly what Yahushua did. Man, he was about the truth. Man, he gave the truth, and he executed the law, and he was practical while using the law, even though his people weren't showing him love back. He still showed perfect judgment. He still moved the earth perfectly. And that's how you got to be. Man, if you can master love, man, it will go a very, things will change for you, man. You'll go a very long way. And some men got to work on that. I got to work on that, because, in this world, coming out of this world, you were taught to not give people love if you weren't receiving love. You were taught to say, man, fuck this guy. Fuck that nigga, man. Or fuck that bitch. I don't gotta do nothing for this guy. This guy didn't do nothing for me. You can't you can't be like that being in the truth, though. Oh, this guy's not useful. Now fuck him. What is he gonna do for me? And sadly, you have men like that. You're gonna have men like that. You've seen examples like that in this truth of ours, man. You got the Sakaris, you got the Yaradans, you got the Elements, you got all these weird characters, man. These strange characters that act like that. And you have some people that are among us incognito. They act like that too. They act like that too. But you can't be like that, man. Can't be like that. Now going back to the sheep thing, I'm just gonna actually, let me I'm gonna go back to loving the people, and then I'm gonna move back to the sheep. I'm gonna stay on that. So loving the people, I got this. This is Acts chapter 6 verse 1, choosing of the 7. And in those days, when the number of disciples were multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily administration. Yeah, so these Grecians were the Israelite foreigners, and they came into the fold and they started worshiping the Lord. They came back to the nationality and who they were. And obviously the Hebrews, I'm talking about the Israelites who were brought up as Hebrews. They knew who they were. They were against the Grecians, and they started denying them certain rights and privileges that they were supposed to receive. So they viewed the Israelite foreigners as strangers still, right? Even though they're doing the work. And that's how you're not supposed to be. That you're not supposed to view others as strangers if you're doing the work, especially if they're doing the work. Oh, they're just strangers, man. I don't see this guy as anybody. Sadly, you have men like that in this truth. And that shows they really don't understand love. Now, I'll say this, because their widows were neglected in the daily administration, and that's true. I'll equate this to an example, right? This is the example I'm going to use. You could be a property manager, right? And you have it all together, right? You have a lot of money. You're set. You know who you are. You got it. You're the shit. Lord's dealing with you, right? He's good. And then you're renting the property to one of your own people, but it happens to be that they're weaker. So it could be maybe a single mother of 3. And now it's time for you to collect the rent. So you go to this individual knowing that she's weak, right? And her family's weak. And you know that she may not have the money. You still have to show love, man. You still have to talk to that woman and reason with her. And you got to show her love within the law. And you may have to have hard conversations with that woman because she's weak. You may have to tell this woman, look, maybe it's time you live at another location, another place that's more affordable, so you can save a little bit more money and raise your children. You can't live this way because you don't really have a man in your life. Those conversations are hard to have, but in order for you to have conversations like that, you got to understand love. And some individuals are just not there, and the ones that are not there, they're getting better. right? I myself, I'm understanding love better. I'm working on that. So yeah, I just thought I'd use an example. Use that as an example. Anyways, let's go back. This is Matthew chapter 18, verse 12, and it says 99 plus 1. So in total 100, right? So it says, how think ye, if a man have 100 sheep, and one of them be gone astray, doth he not leave the 99 and goeth into the mountains, and seeketh that which is gone astray? That's a good question. And if so be that he find it, verily I say unto you, he rejoiceth more of that sheep than of the 99 which he went not astray, or which went not astray. Salakia. Even so, it is not the will of your Father which is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. And that's the will of the Father, man. He doesn't want any of us to perish, especially the elect. And that's why he gave us Yahushua as the mediator and as the shepherd, to be over us and to die for us. Right? Because the Lord doesn't want us to die. He doesn't want any one of us to die, man. He wants everybody to make it. Really? Talking about the elect. All of the elect to make it, right? And yes, the nation of Israel is going to make it. But they're going to make it on the next side. They're going to be in a good spot. A regular person or nigga, this is how they would think. I already, even though I had 100 sheep, I still have 99. It doesn't matter if I lose one. Fuck him. Right? Fuck him. He wasn't that good anyway. He wasn't that useful. Fuck him. He was weak. That's why that happened to him. He was weak. Fuck that nigga. No, you're supposed to love that lamb. You're supposed to go out of your way for him, especially if the lamb, was sincere. Was this sheep or lamb doing what he was told to do? Did he follow the rules? Did he demonstrate his faith to the best of his ability? Did he have works to show? Right? That's how you gotta think. But this is just an example of how the Lord, he views us as lambs, and it shows the love that he has for us, him and the Heavenly Father. Right? Now let me get another example. This is King David. And brothers, that's why you have shepherds in this truth too. That's why you got overseers, you got apostles and elders. And they have that position for a reason, because they love the flock. They love the flock. And yes, you're going to have bad apples too. You're going to have some individuals that are in positions and they just don't give a fuck. But that's life. That's how it is. And you're going to grow when you encounter individuals like that. It may be hard, but how are you going to grow in this thing if you don't go through bad times? But anyways, this is 1 Samuel chapter 17. I'm going to start at 33. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. Which shows, King David's strong, King David's strong and brave. He's brave to do that. Hey man, go on YouTube right now and look at a lion or a bear. Look at how they roar and look how strong they are. I don't know, can't go up against something like that. But King David's brave and strong too, and he has love, right? So anyways, it says verse 35, and I went out after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth, and when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living power. You see, and that's how you gotta be, man. King David's a good example of that, and that's why he was King David. And that's why he's under Yahushua. He's a part of the government body, man. He's a top official in the government body of the nation of Israel. And he viewed the people as sheep. And you gotta protect your sheep, man. And he understood that sheep bruise easily, but he also understood that sheep are resilient. And that's why he was able to pluck it out of the lion's mouth back, because he understood. He'll survive it. Just grab that. Yo, that's serious, man. But you understand what I mean, man. You understand. So this is Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 12. As a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep, and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. Yeah, and we were scattered as a nation, and we are lost sheep. Right, but the lost sheep that are bringing forth a confession, the lost sheep that are penitent, they're gonna come back into the fold. But that's our nation. We're scattered sheep. We're lost sheep. And who is the shepherd? The shepherd is Yahweh, which comes in the form of the word, and also the prophets too. The prophets and different men of the Lord that are out there. Right, they're going out there, and they're seeking out the lost sheep, and they're using the word to do it. Verse 13, it says, "And I will bring them out from the people, and gather them from the countries, and will bring them to their own land, and feed them upon the mountains of Israel, by the rivers, and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. There shall they lie in good fold, and in a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock, and I'll cause them to lie down, saith the Lord power." Yeah, hey, and that good pasture starts with the word, the truth. And that's what's going to feed you, this truth, man. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That's that food, man. And obviously all the other pleasant and dainty things will come. And we're going to eat off the land, and we're going to wax fat. But that starts really with the truth. Alright, so what else I got? Yeah, that was actually I got this. This is Psalms chapter 119, verse 176. "I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Seek thy servant, for I do not forget." True, man. True. What does that mean? What does that mean? Now, obviously, this links to sinners. One that was a sinner. So weak. A weak and unsteady saints. The weak, unsteady saints are like lost sheep, man. Right, and I'll just say this, man. We have all fallen short. But if you're penitent and you bring forth a confession to Yahweh Bashem Yoshai, man, you'll come back into the fold. Right, you'll come back into the fold. And you gotta call upon the right names, man. Yahweh Bashem Yoshai. Anyway, that's all I want. So until next time, just want to give all praises, glory, and honor due unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone of GMS that do rule well and that do teach well, that have taught me this truth. To you I say shalom, and shalom unto the hopeful elect. Kwam Yasha Allah and Abad Babal. Shalom.